Okay, now I'm ready. Hi everybody. I hope you enjoy this meetup so far. I'm going to present to you one interesting meta programming topic, such as refactoring code bases using JSCodeShift. We're going to cover a lot of stuff, so bear with my tempo, please. So actually we're going to have 4 different parts. We're going to talk about the problem that we stumbled upon in NordNet here. We're gonna come up with some solution. We're gonna do small implementation, and we're gonna overview the results that we had. But first, small info about me. That was the hardest part of the slides, like how you introduce yourself to other developers. I came up with list of the languages that I worked with, but I don't think it was the best, but again, bear with me. Currently, I'm working on implementing a design system here at NordNet Bank AB. Okay, let's start. First part, how many of you have in any way heard this phrase from designer in your company? Okay, cool. Yeah, you for sure. In NordNet, we have about 8 full stack teams, which has completely separate business domains, and we have continuous integration and delivery high tempo, 7-5 releases a day. And technology-wise, we are using React and GSS, which is CSS and JS solution. So we don't use monorepo. Instead, we have packages for everything. We have page as a package. We have UI kit as a package. Another entity, visual identity. So what is visual identity? Who knows this? What does that mean? Anybody from designers? No? Okay, so basically it's exactly the look and feel of your application page whatsoever. So it's something that your brand gonna be identified with in terms of typography, colors, that stuff. So it's more designer's term, but yeah, keep that in mind. So we had previously we had old VI, which didn't look like this, but yeah. It was there was some guidelines. It was not too structured, not too maintained, and designers were not aligned at all. But we had a high speed of delivery, which all of our product owners likes. So, but it looks like this, yeah. Then the designers came up with the whole new VI approach and came to us and said okay, let's freshen up things a bit. So it means introducing new typography, color, shapes, new grid, and new components. So new components is something that we are currently working on. So it's work in progress. But we have a lot, really a lot of code that needs to be somehow changed to align with new rules for typography, color, shapes, and grid at least. So speaking of designers, what we can rely, what we can get from them to help us with this migration. Okay, guidelines, examples, literal presence and knowledge sharing, real time. Yeah, maybe some guidelines. Very limited examples. You're not gonna have a totally new designs for every page you already have, right? You need to figure it out yourselves or in some other way. And the presence and knowledge sharing, in my experience, the designers are often the bottleneck in the whole organization. So you will not get the designer team for 2 months to just do the migration, right? So let's formulate our problem. How we can change the code in a lot of packages so we can minimize development time, minimize designers' involvement, maybe try to minimize integration cost of all of this, also minimize human error factor, because again, we are developer, we are thinking about these things, and maybe even make it somehow testable. So we're gonna discuss the solution that we created, and we were somehow able to do pretty much of it, not integration cost, but we will get to it. Let's go to part 2. One time, that's good. So, can we automate the process? I mean, we are all engineers, right? So, we need to create something. There is a tool from Facebook called CodeMod, which is basically it's a tool that assists you with code-based refactors that can be partially automated but still require human oversight and occasional intervention. This is in the description of GitHub repo, so pay attention to that. And we have another tool from Facebook called JSCodeShift, which is basically the runner for codemods. So CodeMod is written in Python. It's not for JavaScript. It's more lower level stuff. But this provides you a tool for transforming the actual JavaScript code with it. So yeah, there are many words here. It's a toolkit, wraparound, recast, AST to AST, transform, a lot of unknown words, right? It may be confusing for someone. But let's start with basic. What is AST? AST stands for Abstract Syntax Tree. We can reduce this to tree. What is tree? It's just basic data structure, right? It's nodes and some links between them, parent, children, that stuff. For example, DOM is a tree that we are all aware of. What is abstract syntax tree? Let's say we have this expression, 2 multiplied by 7 and plus 3. So for this expression, we can actually build a tree that will represent what we are doing here. So this is going to be the entry point, this plus, because then you have this as a one operand, this as another operand. So then you have, for this operand, you have action as a node again, and then you have arguments, entries to that. What is abstract syntax tree in JavaScript? So let's say you have a code like this. You have 2 functions, you're just doing something, and you're just returning something, pretty much the same, right? You're doing some math here. So then you will get AST for that program is going to look like this. So you have 2 functions, foo and bar. Each function going to have block statement in it. You're going to have return statement. So basically it's if you go into some JavaScript 101, you're going to have all of this okay, so this is called return statement and stuff like that. So this is how our IDEs, for example, sees our code. That's exactly the something we can work with. So again, why do we need this AST? Let's look how code transformation work. So the naive approach here would be okay, so I have a code, a bunch of text, and I'm going to just run a lot of regexp, replace something with something, right? Go from here directly here. The problem with this approach is you already have that structure that we talked about. You already have the AST. Your IDE, your TypeScript or Babel, whatever you are using, ESLint, they're all aware of that AST, but you are skipping it. You need to do it yourself. You need to think about okay, is my opening bracket on the same row or not, or something like that. So you are really, if you're trying to solve it with regexp only, you are really making it harder for yourself than it should be. So yeah, basically code transformations. You have 3 steps here. It's parse, transform, and generate. Parse, transform, and generate. Basically, parse, done by parser. Generate, done by parser. You need only to figure out what parser do you want to use and what should be your transform. Okay, let's do a quick demo. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool called astexplorer.net. Here, are you able to see the code? Can I make it bigger? too bigger, too big, Houston. Cool, yeah, okay. So we have pretty simple like JavaScript here, and you can see like to the right, can you see to the right? This one. You can see some structure generated out of this code. So we have like some nodes here. We have file, we have program in it, and you can see like when I'm hovering over node, it got like highlighted inside of code area. So inside, oh, I can't see it. Okay, you have body, you have a variable declaration, and you have a function declaration. Inside of a function declaration, for example, you have a lot of stuff, but again, you have a body which represents block statement. It's pretty much the same picture I showed you before, but here you have it either in tree view or in like JSON format. That's pretty much the same. Even more, if you click here, you're gonna have the same node representing this like this expression. Then, like on the top, we have different like helpers for this tool. You can save your snippet. You can like share it with somebody. You can choose different languages. It's not only JavaScript. You can use CSS. You can use GraphQL. So it's like pretty generic stuff that we're talking about. You can change the parsers to be like different. You can use the parser that Babel uses, for example, Babel 7. You can use the ESLint parser. They're pretty much the same. It's just like the names for the nodes are a bit different. Yeah, that's going to help us afterwards. Let's continue. How can I continue this? Okay. Okay, how we can actually transform AST. Example from documentation. I need to, good. Okay, so let's look at this. So we have some API, right? We are passing in source of the file. We then call some like functions, like methods on it, and we just like returning to source. We are returning bare string out of it. So that's it. That's like the minimal transformation for you. What it will do, it's basically gonna rename every foo with bar, every variable declarator. So if you have var foo equals something, it's gonna be var bar equals something. That's it. Okay, looks easy. How I can run it? That's it. You just like pass in your transformation, and you pass in the path to all the files that you want to transform. And then JSCodeShift will run it, will like show you if there were any errors and stuff like that. Why did we discuss then all of this AST stuff? Like why, if it's that simple? So pay attention to this one. So it's the same example. This API is exposed for convenience, but you don't have to use it. You can use anything to modify the source. That's what we're going to do. Why? Bear with me. I'm going to explain in the end, okay? But we are not going to use this API for now. You can use, but we won't. Okay, tree traversal, visitor pattern. Cool, quick demo. I need to show my screen. Mirror. Cool. Cool. Visitor. Okay, let's say we have a function like this. I need to make it bigger. Can everybody see? Cool. It's basically like the factory function for like some employee object. It has some methods, like some set of getters, setters. We are not writing code like this. It's just an example, disclaimer. But anyway, let's say we want some methods to operate on these visitors. Let's say we want to have method add salary and add vacation days. And we have a list of employees, like a developer, accountant, and CEO. And they have like starting salary, they have starting vacation days, and then we're gonna somehow like mutate them. So actually, I think I'm not gonna do the live coding here. I think I'm going to change the focus more towards code mods. So I'm going to actually open the done version. So that's one of the solution you can do for this. So basically, like, let's say you want for your developers to raise salary, for your accountant to raise more salary, because like that's the one dealing with money, you know, you don't want to angry that person. And your CEO, of course, gets double as money as he got before. And about vacation days, so developer gets a reduction, accountant gets one more, and CEO like can have how many it want. Yeah, so if we run this code now, let me quickly run it. DSRC visitor one done. So we can see that after this stuff we have like everything working. Okay. Here, like key point here, we're focusing more on the behavior, right? We defined a function for adding salary. We defined a function for adding vacation days. But what if instead of that, we want to focus more on a like type of employee level? What if we want to define set of rules to like transform the developer object and like another set of rules to transform the accountant object and CEO and place that as a separate entities, right? Okay, again, I'm gonna open the done version. So here is the pattern itself. So basically we define one object called visitor, and the keys of this object gonna represent your like types of items in your collection. But then you have a function that you like do whatever you want for this particular type of item. And then you just have one method. You just accept this visitor. And there is no magic. If I open the employee file, you can see that accept method is pretty dumb. It just grabs the visitor, and if in that visitor you have this type of the employee, then you're gonna just invoke it with the employee. Nothing more, all right? Cool. Let's move on. Okay, let's move on to the actual like implementation of code mod. Let's say we want to write a simple code mod. We just want to remove every console log statement from our files. That's super easy, should be at least. Actually, I'm going to switch back. Visitor, cool. Code mod. So the rule itself look like this. So you have one export. Your rule file is just one export. You have file info API options. We are not going to use API, as I told you before. Options, we don't need that for now. And we're going to use recast, which is like another abstraction layer on top of parser, which like allows you to call this .visit method. Basically, that's why we're going to use it. So, and for parsing, yeah, sure. Then you have this object here, basically representing your visitor object as we saw it before in the employer example. So this has its own API. It has TypeScript definitions, maybe not here, but you can see it like in the definition file. So this actually, what it's gonna do, when it's gonna visit call expression. So the call expression, okay, I need to open AST Explorer. So let's say we have like this. So this is actually going to be the call expression. It's when you like invoking some function, right? So basically, when we're going to visit this node that represents call expression, we're going to end up inside of this function. And we're going to have our path object with which we can do whatever we want, right? So another cool thing about AST Explorer is you can click transform here, and you can select, for example, JSCodeShift, and that brings you a very powerful workshop to actually build any transform you want. Again, like this in particular example uses built-in API, so it will be much easier, but again, we will not do it. Now we are not seeking for easier solutions. So here, I'm going to open just for the sake of time the done rule. It looks like this. We grab from the path, we grab the actual node of the code, and we grab the callee out of it. And the callee is going to be member expression. Like we are searching for the member expression, which will represent, and like the name should be console and the property should be log. So if this is the case, then this is terrible line of code, but basically what it does is just removes the whole node, right? And then we just continue in our traversal of the tree. The cool thing about codemod and JSCodeShift in particular is that it comes with built-in test runner. So basically, when you actually gonna create like your rules, you're gonna start with tests. You're gonna define like some fixtures. Like say you have this piece of code, and you want this to remain the same because this is not console log, this is console error, right? And you have, let's say, this piece of code with console log, and you want this to be like without console log, right? Just TDD. So the test itself looks like, yeah, it's pretty much the same. So you grab define test from the library itself, from test utils, and then you just like call it with the names of the files, and it just works. You have your TDD. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing like rocket science. All of this, I don't know this. I don't know this by heart in any way. There are too many information there. But all of these are available either here. So this is just like simple environment. You can open console here. You can like export this variable here. You can do breakpoints. You can investigate it. Or you can dive into the type definition, TypeScript type definitions, and look up here, look up there. Cool. This was like the basic code mod. I also have like this test project, pretty much the same tests. So it has some console log, console warns here. It also has like another console log, which is a bit complex here, right? It has like on a different rows. You will be able to like do this with regexp, but it will take more time and more complexity. And we have one more example that is really complex, and you probably will fail to do this with regexp, because if you try to count like the opening closing brackets, you can see that there is like a smile which will ruin the whole process for you. But with code mods, we actually gonna be able, is it CodeShift? Yeah, you can see like this is pretty much pretty nice. So it uses workers. It's parallelizing the process. So when you run it on a large code base, it would be like pretty fast. You have errors like unmodified, skipped stuff here, and okay. So errors means that there was like actually raised an error, but it also means that you are missed the whole transformation of file. It's gonna be like preserved in the state before the transformation. So to avoid that, we actually came up with a solution to insert in and fix me comment on the line where like code mode failed to do its own thing. So and if we look at the change here, we can see that our console log was removed here, and was removed here as well, so no problem. Again, we're talking about AST transformation, not regexp here. Let me continue. So, new VI migration, what we actually done. For the typography step, we found every occurrence of the font size, line height, and font weight properties. Again, we're talking CSS in JS, and that's why it was like in JS. And we mapped them into the new typography types. And if we were unable to do that, then we just added fix me comment. And it worked like charm, like every time, and the developers didn't need to do a thing. They just ran it and boom, it's working. Sometimes it was not ideal from the designer's perspective because it was incorrect usage in the first place, like of the sizes and len heights and whatsoever, but that's another question. For the colors, we actually found every hard-coded color as a like literal value, string literal, and we mapped to one of new VI colors. We had a pretty interesting solution to that included some like HSL transformation and some like basic 3D geometry to do that, but that's again like maybe another topic. For the shapes, basically we had like rounded corners and designers wanted it to be rectangle. Then we just like remove the whole border radius and fix some like circles to remain the circles. Results. It is still like semi-automated process, but we were able to minimize developers' time. It was just one person who created code mods. We minimized the designer's involvement because it was the designer who actually helped this person to create code mods. Also did a small session of QA afterwards, but that was the most time consuming stuff for designer. We were not able to minimize integration codes because we still need to like apply these code mods and fix all the bugs, but okay. We minimized human factor because most of the transformation were done automatically. And it was testable. It was like TDD. Actual result. So we did a rough estimation what it would be like if we are not going with code mods, and it was like 3 to 4 person months, like for one person to work on this. And real time, it took 2 person months. And we are not talking month. It was actually like inside 3 weeks or something like that. But yeah, developers are happy. Designers are happy. POs are happy. Some thoughts. So not everything can be solved with code mods. You still need this like manual check afterwards. Good code standards will make this process much easier because then you're going to have the same structure of your code. Try to find sweet spot between like putting too much logic inside of your code mods rather than like do some manual work afterwards, because that's what we did for typography. It was really hard. Like the code for code mods was like top notch, but then like again, maybe it was too much of an effort and some parts can be done manually afterwards. We still like multi-package approach, yeah. Okay, one bonus, why we did this all, why we didn't use the API. So if I open, oh, what's happening? Okay. If I'm gonna open the bonus folder, there is 2 folders, Babel plugin and ESLint plugin. I'm gonna open Babel plugin. And if you can see, it's pretty much the same code, like it pretty much does the same, but for the Babel, it just removes the console log statement. A bit fancier API, but the structure is pretty much the same. We have this visitor object, you see? And if we open ESLint plugin, you can see that it's exactly the same. You have this visitor pattern, you have this call expression here, you have pretty much structure here. So my point is, if you know AST, you are able to do code mods, Babel, custom Babel plugin, custom ESLint rules, custom prettier configurations, a lot more. And it's not only in JavaScript. So my point again is learn this. This is going to help you a lot. For a minimum amount of effort, you're going to actually put a big golden stone inside of your pocket as a developer. That's all. Thank you very much.